My name is Claire Whitman. I'm 34. 3 weeks ago, at a Mother's Day brunch in Columbus, my mother handed me a printed speech and told me to thank her second husband for saving me. She had underlined one sentence in red. Read the part where you say he chose you when your own father didn't. Grant smiled from the head of the table, as if my childhood had been assigned seating. I folded the page once. Then I set it beside my water glass. But here's what my mother didn't know. The mail had already brought me a cardboard box filled with 16 years of returned letters addressed to me. That box is the reason I'm sitting here telling you this. Act 2 CTA plus bridge. If your family ever asked you to thank the person who replaced a truth they buried, stay with me. Like this story and subscribe if you believe gratitude should never be forced out of someone else's lie. Let me take you back to the summer. My mother changed the locks and changed the story about my father. I was 12 when my mother, Denise, told me my father was gone for good. She said it in the kitchen, with one hand on the phone and the other on the receipt for the new lock. She did not sit down. She did not soften it. She only said, "He made his choice, Claire." By the next Sunday, Grant was carrying grocery bags into our house. My mother gave him the new key before she gave me an explanation. He set the bags on the counter, put milk in our refrigerator, and asked where we kept the coffee filters. My mother answered him like he had always belonged there. Then she looked at me and said, "Say thank you. Grant is trying." That was how the story began in our house. My father left. Grant stayed. My mother survived. I was expected to applaud the arrangement. Columbus was not a small town, but our neighborhood behaved like one. The women at church knew whose husband had left. The man at the hardware store knew who bought the new lock. The school secretary knew when my emergency contact changed. My mother knew how to turn all of that into one clean sentence. Grant stepped up. She said it to the pastor. She said it to my teachers. She said it to me whenever I asked why my father had not called. Grant liked that sentence. He wore it well. He was the kind of man who carried folding chairs before anyone asked, and made sure other adults saw him doing it. He fixed a cabinet handle. He brought orange slices to my soccer game. He sat in the second row at my winter concert and left before my solo because he had an early meeting. My mother still told everyone he never missed anything important. In our house, gratitude was not a feeling. It was rent. When school started that fall, I needed supplies. My mother told me to thank Grant because he had covered the list. I had bought half of it myself with babysitting money from the woman next door. I did not say that. I thanked him at dinner because my mother watched my mouth like it was a door she owned. Grant nodded once and said, "That's what family does." The next day, I found the receipt from my own purchase folded under my math book. I kept it. I did not know why yet. I only knew paper remembered things people tried to smooth over. At 14, I had a choir concert. My father did not come. My mother said that was proof. Grant came, shook two hands, and left before the last song. At home, my mother put her purse on the table and said, Grant stepped up. I looked at the program in my hand. My name was printed near the bottom. His chair had been empty during my song. The paper knew that too. By 15, I had learned not to ask about my father in front of Grant. Asking made the room tighten. My mother would press her lips together and look tired in a way that made me feel cruel. Grant would lean back and let the silence do the work for him. Then my mother would say the line. Grant stepped up. The words were never loud. They did not need to be. In that house, a quiet sentence could move furniture. The only adult who never repeated it was Mrs. Avery, the head librarian at the branch where I shelved books after school. She was 70 if she was a day, with silver hair pinned so tightly it looked like a policy. She did not pry. She did not call my mother difficult. She only watched how carefully I kept every slip of paper. One afternoon, I was taping a torn return receipt into the library's record folder when she said, "If someone keeps telling you a story too loudly, save the paper version." I laughed because I thought she was being funny. Mrs. Avery did not laugh with me. She slid a small envelope across the desk and told me to put my pay stubs in it. "People forget what they said," she told me. "Paper forgets less." That sentence stayed with me longer than most advice. I kept receipts. I kept school programs. I kept permission slips with my mother's signature. I kept a birthday card from Grant because he had signed only his own name, not Dad, before my mother told him to change it the next year. I did not keep those things because I was planning revenge. At 15, I was not planning anything. I was just tired of being told my memory was rude. After high school, I stayed near Columbus and studied library science. My mother called it practical in the tone people use when they mean small. Grant said libraries were peaceful because nothing urgent happened there. He said that while asking me to find his tax folder, which he had misplaced in a box marked garage. I found it in 8 minutes. He called that lucky. I moved into my own apartment at 23. My mother cried when I signed the lease. But not because she wanted me home. She cried because I would not let Grant carry my boxes in front of the neighbors. He earned that, she said. I asked what he had earned. She said, Grant stepped up. I signed the last page and kept my copy. For years, I thought the story had settled into its final shape. My father was gone. My mother had made him into a warning. Grant had made himself into a replacement. I had made myself into someone useful and quiet. That seemed to be enough for everyone except me. Then, 2 months before the Mother's Day brunch, my mother called and told me she had news. She used the bright voice she saved for church ladies and people with clipboards. "We have a book deal," she said. I was in my office at the library, holding a stack of overdue notices. I thought I had misheard her. She repeated it, slower and happier. A memoir, Claire, about healing, about blended family, about how love can choose what blood abandons. I sat down. The first number appeared that same week. My mother mailed me a copy of the announcement because she did not trust email to feel ceremonial enough. The article said the publisher had offered a package worth $180,000, pending final manuscript and publicity approval. There was a photo of my mother and Grant on their front porch. Grant had one hand on her shoulder. My mother held a mug with the word Grace printed on it. The headline called their story, "A Testimony of Chosen Family." My name appeared in the second paragraph. Not as a woman, not as a daughter with her own memory. I was Denise's young daughter, abandoned by her biological father, and embraced by the man who became her true dad. I read that sentence 3 times. Not because it was hard to understand, because I wanted it to become less ugly on the third read. It did not. My mother called later that night. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked. I told her it was a lot to see in print. She said, "It's our truth." I said, "It's your version." There was a pause. Then she lowered her voice. "Don't start, Claire," Grant stepped up. The old sentence came through the phone as clean as ever. It still knew where to land. The brunch invitation arrived 10 days later. It was printed on thick cream paper. My mother had always believed heavy paper made a thing more respectable. The invitation said Mother's Day would be a small family gathering to celebrate the story that carried us. Under that, in my mother's handwriting, she had added, "Ellen from the publisher will be there. Please be warm." Warm meant obedient. Warm meant no questions at the table. Warm meant my face would be used as proof. I almost threw the invitation away. Instead, I put it in the drawer where I kept my old pay stubs, my school programs, and the first lease I ever signed. Mrs. Avery had been right. Paper forgets less. I just did not know yet how much paper was still waiting for me. The waiting ended on a wet Thursday in April. I came home from work and found a cardboard box outside my apartment door. It had been mailed from Michigan by my father's sister. She did not write a long note. She only wrote, "Your father kept these. I saw the article. I thought you should have the paper version." I carried the box inside and set it on my kitchen table. For a long minute, I did not open it. A person can spend years wanting an answer and still be afraid of the sound it makes when it arrives. I cut the tape with a butter knife because I could not find my scissors. The top flaps lifted. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them. Some were yellowed at the edges, some had old stamps. Some had my childhood address. Some had red return marks across the front. Some had my mother's handwriting in the corner where she had written, "Not at this address." The first envelope I touched was addressed to me on my 13th birthday. I knew my father's handwriting from 3 old Christmas tags my mother had forgotten to throw away. The letters matched. The slant of the C in Claire. The way he crossed his T. My hands did not shake much. That surprised me. Maybe some part of me had been waiting so long that it recognized the truth before I did. The box did not explain everything. It did not make my father perfect. It did not erase the years he had missed. But it did one thing my mother could not smooth over. It proved he had tried to reach me. Again and again. Year after year. 16 years of returned envelopes sat on my table while my mother's book announcement sat in my drawer. That night, I understood the difference between being left and being blocked. I did not call my mother that night. I did not call Grant. I did not call the publisher and start shouting like a woman who had just found the smoking gun. Real life is not that tidy. Real life gives you a cardboard box at 7:40 on a Thursday night and expects you to go to work the next morning. So I did what I knew how to do. I made a record. I cleared my kitchen table and sorted the envelopes by year. I took a photo of each front and back. I wrote the postmark dates in a notebook. I marked the ones returned from our old house. I marked the ones with my mother's handwriting. I did not read every letter. Not then. Some of them felt too alive. I read enough to know my mother had not told me the truth. The earliest letter was from the fall after the locks changed. My father wrote that he had come by twice and no one answered. He wrote that he had left a birthday card with the woman next door. He wrote, "I am not asking you to choose me over your mother. I only want you to know I am still here." I sat with that sentence until the light over my stove clicked off by itself. The next morning, I called in late to the library. Then I called the number printed on my mother's book announcement. I did not accuse anyone. I asked whether a person named in a memoir had a chance to read the pages about them before publication. The assistant transferred me to a woman named Ellen Price. Her voice was careful, not cold. I told her I was Denise Whitman's daughter. That was all it took for the air to change. Ellen said, "Your mother speaks about you often." I said, "I know." She asked if I was comfortable being included in the book. I looked at the box on my table. "I would like to hear the version my mother plans to print," I said. Ellen did not promise anything. She only said she would be attending the Mother's Day brunch and hoped we could speak there. Before we hung up, she added, "Memoir still has to be true enough that the people in it can stand in the room." That sentence was not a rescue. It was a door left unlocked. My mother called the next day. She was excited. Excitement made her careless. "Ellen is coming," she said. "She wants to see the family together. Nothing stiff, just natural." Natural was a funny word for a brunch with assigned remarks. My mother told me she would send a few lines for me to say. "Not a speech," she said. "Just something from the heart." Then she paused and corrected herself. "Well, from the heart, but polished." The email arrived that night. The subject line said, "For Mother's Day toast." The attachment was 2 pages long. My section had 4 sentences. The first thanked my mother for never giving up. The second thanked Grant for showing me what a father looked like. The third said I had once been angry at my biological father, but now understood that love was proven by presence. The fourth called Grant, "the man who chose me." I printed it because reading it on a screen made it feel too slippery. On paper, the lie had edges. I brought the pages to work and placed them beside 3 of my father's returned letters. The library was not open yet. The front windows were still dark, and the book carts waited in the aisle like quiet witnesses. Mrs. Avery had retired years earlier, but I still used the small back desk she had claimed as her kingdom. I could almost hear her saying it again. Save the paper version. By then, the thing my mother stood to lose was clear. The $180,000 was not just a number in an article. My mother had already spent part of the first payment. She had leased a new SUV with cream leather seats. She had paid a photographer for author portraits. She had ordered a banner for the church fellowship hall that said "Chosen into Grace." Grant had started telling people they were considering a speaking tour. He said platform now. He used it like a man who had just learned a new tool and wanted everyone to see him carry it. At Sunday lunch 2 weeks before the brunch, my mother tested the story on me in person. We sat at her table, the same table where she used to make me thank Grant for things I had done myself. She slid a printed copy of the toast toward me. "Just read it naturally," she said. "Ellen needs to feel the warmth." I asked, "What if I don't agree with it?" Grant set down his fork. My mother's eyes flicked to him before she answered me. "This is not the time to punish the man who stayed." There it was. Not the central sentence yet. A cousin of it. A warning shot. I said, "I'm not punishing anyone." My mother tapped the paper. Grant stepped up. She said it softly, as if softness made it less rehearsed. I looked at the paper. I looked at the woman who had taught me to doubt my own memory. Then I folded the toast and put it in my purse. "I'll bring it on Mother's Day," I said. She heard obedience. I heard the click of a door closing behind her. Over the next week, my mother became bold. She sent me a photo of the table plan. Grant at the head. My mother at his right. Ellen near the middle. Me 2 seats away from my mother, close enough to stand when called. She sent a note under the photo. This will be healing if you let it. I did not answer. I printed the table plan and placed it in the folder with the letters. Ellen called me once more before the brunch. She said my mother had described the event as a private family blessing. I said, there will be a toast. Ellen was quiet for a moment. Are you being asked to speak? She asked. I said, yes. She asked, are you comfortable with that? I looked at the cardboard box sitting under my desk at home. I'm comfortable with the truth being in the room, I said. That was the most I gave her. I did not tell Ellen about the letters. I did not need her to prepare the blow. I needed her to witness what my mother chose to do when she thought the room belonged to her. The night before Mother's Day, I packed the box into the trunk of my car. I chose 12 letters from 16 years and placed them on top. I did not choose the saddest ones. I chose the clearest ones. Birthday, choir concert, graduation, first apartment, the kind of milestones my mother had said my father ignored. I put the printed toast in the same folder. I put the book announcement behind it. Then I sat in the driver's seat for a minute with both hands on the wheel. I was not calm because it did not hurt. I was calm because hurting had never made my mother more honest. Mother's Day came bright and warm, the kind of Ohio morning my mother would have called a blessing if it made her look good. I arrived 20 minutes early. My mother had moved the brunch from her dining room to the church fellowship hall because, as she put it, more people wanted to celebrate with us. 18 place settings sat on 2 long tables. 12 printed speeches waited beside the plates. A white banner hung near the coffee urn, chosen into grace. Grant stood under it, checking the angle on his phone camera. My mother saw me carrying nothing but my purse. That pleased her. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "Thank you for coming with an open heart." I had parked the box behind the coat rack near the side door. It was close enough to reach, not close enough for her to notice. Ellen Price arrived with a slim folder under one arm. My mother lit up when she saw it. She touched her hair. Grant straightened his jacket. They both became a little taller. That folder was not the whole contract, but my mother treated it like a crown. She introduced Ellen to relatives as our editor. Ellen corrected her once, gently. Acquisitions editor, she said. My mother laughed too quickly and said, "See? She keeps us accurate." Accurate. That word sat down at the table before any of us did. The brunch began with fruit, coffee, and small talk that tried hard not to look like staging. My mother moved from guest to guest with the restless joy of a person watching a plan obey her. She told my aunt that Grant had taught me how to trust again. She told a woman from church that the book was not about pain, but about redemption. She told Ellen that I had been shy as a child because abandonment does that to a girl. I spread butter on a roll and let the knife move slowly. Grant's phone stayed propped against a small vase. He said it was only for a few family clips. The red light blinked. My mother pretended not to see it. I knew better. She wanted a moment she could post later. My face, my voice, my gratitude. Proof with good lighting. After the plates were cleared, my mother gave me the printed toast. It was the same version she had emailed, but now she had marked my part in red. The red line looked almost cheerful. She said, "When dessert comes out, you'll read after me." Grant smiled at me from the head of the table. "Big day," he said, "for all of us." I looked at Ellen's folder. I looked at the side door. I looked back at my mother. "I understand," I said. That was the quiet place where the story could have gone another way. My mother could have let the brunch be brunch. She could have thanked people for coming and left my mouth alone. She could have kept her lie private for one more day. She did not. Before dessert, I walked to the coat rack and took the cardboard box from behind it. No one stopped me. A cardboard box is not dramatic until it has a reason to be. I set it under my chair and sat down. My mother was busy telling Ellen how hard it had been to raise a wounded child. "You never know what they carry," she said. I almost smiled at that. Almost. If you are still listening, write the word truth in the comments, because this is the part where my mother thought she was about to get the clean ending. She was not. And I promise you, the next few minutes are why she never asked me to read from a script again. Dessert arrived in small glass cups. Lemon cream. My mother had chosen it because it looked pretty on a table. She stood before anyone had taken a bite. Grant reached for his phone and adjusted it. Ellen's hand rested on the folder. The room gave my mother its attention, which was all she had ever needed to become certain. She thanked everyone for loving their family. She thanked Grant for showing what chosen love looked like. She thanked the publisher for believing a story of healing could help other families. Then she turned to me. Her eyes shone. Not with tears, with expectation. "Claire," she said, "would you read your part?" I stood. I held the printed speech. The room became very easy to understand. My mother wanted my voice. Grant wanted the video. Ellen wanted to see the family behind the pages. The relatives wanted a nice moment before coffee. Every person in that room had been handed a different reason to look at me. My mother stepped closer. She tapped the paper with one red fingernail. "Read the part where you say he chose you when your own father didn't." There it was. The sentence from the kitchen. The sentence from the article. The sentence from every year she had made my father smaller so Grant could stand taller. She had said it in front of the one person who could close the folder. She had said it while the camera was recording. She had said it because she thought I would rather bleed quietly than embarrass her. I looked down at the speech. Then I looked at the box under my chair. "No," I said, not loudly, just clearly. I picked up the cardboard box with both hands and placed it on the table. The sound was small. The room heard it anyway. My mother's smile held for half a second longer than it should have, like a porch light left on after everyone has gone to bed. I did not look at Grant. I did not look at the phone. I looked at my mother. "Before I read your version," I said, "I need to put the paper version on the table." Then I opened the box. The first thing people saw was not a legal form. It was not a contract. It was not a threat. It was a stack of returned envelopes tied with plain cotton string. My name was on the top one, Claire Whitman. My childhood address sat underneath it. The stamp was old enough to look almost fake. The postmark was not. The 3rd of October, 2004. Ellen leaned forward. She did not touch the envelope. She did not need to. I untied the string and laid 3 letters beside my mother's printed speech. 1 envelope for my 13th birthday. 1 for my choir concert. 1 for my high school graduation. I placed them in a row, 3 pieces of paper. 3 years my mother had told me were empty. Grant lowered his phone. The red recording light still blinked against his thumb. My aunt pressed her napkin flat against the table and forgot to move her hand. A woman from church reached toward her water glass and stopped before she touched it. My mother said, "Claire, this is not the place." I nodded once. "You chose the place." That was the only sharp thing I allowed myself. I picked up the birthday envelope. "This was mailed the year I turned 13, I said. "It is addressed to me. It has my father's return address. It has the postmark. It came back, marked not at this address." I turned the front toward the table. My mother's old handwriting sat in the corner. Small, neat, familiar. Her hand went to her collar. Her fingers pressed the fabric there. She looked at the envelope, then at Ellen, then at Grant. She did not look at me. I opened the letter. I did not read all of it. Some sentences did not belong to the room. I read one line because it was enough. "I am not asking you to choose me over your mother. I only want you to know I am still here." I set the letter down. Grant said, "That could mean anything." Ellen looked at him. Not sharply, just directly. "It means he wrote." No one answered that. I picked up the choir concert envelope. "This one came the month of my winter concert," I said. My mother told me he did not know the date. I slid out the card. Inside was a program clipping with my name circled. My father had written, "I heard you are singing. I hope you still stand with your left foot forward when you are nervous." I had done that at every concert since 3rd grade. A cousin at the end of the table pushed his chair back an inch. The chair leg scraped the floor. That scrape did more than any gasp could have done. It told me the room had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. Ellen's folder closed. One clean motion. She placed her pen across the top. My mother saw that. Her eyes changed. "Ellen," she said, "families are complicated." Ellen kept her hand on the closed folder. "They are," she said. "But the chapter we discussed says Claire's father never tried to contact her after the divorce." My mother's mouth opened. No answer came out. She had spent 16 years with a sentence ready for me. She did not have one ready for a closed folder. I placed the graduation envelope beside the others. "This was mailed the week before I graduated high school," I said. My mother told me he did not remember. I tapped the front lightly. It came back too, Denise whispered. I was protecting you. I looked at the 3 envelopes. From birthday cards? Her face flushed hard. It started at her throat and moved up. Grant stood halfway, then sat back down because there was nowhere useful for him to go. The phone was still in his hand. The camera had caught every word my mother had asked me to read, and every envelope she had not expected to see. Ellen asked one question. Only one. Denise, did you know these letters existed when you described Claire's father as absent in the manuscript? My mother looked at the box. She looked at the red underlined speech. She looked at me. The room waited. She said, I did what I had to do. That was the moment the memoir died. Ellen did not announce it like a judge. She did not need to. She lifted the folder from the table and slid it into her bag. We cannot move forward with a family redemption story built on a claim contradicted by documents in the room, she said. Then she stood. Her voice stayed calm. I'm sorry, Claire. That apology was not the one I had waited for all my life. It still landed better than the silence I had been trained to accept. My mother sat down slowly. Her red fingernail rested on the printed speech. The line she had underlined was still visible. He chose you when your own father didn't. Beside it sat 16 years of proof that my father had tried to choose me again and again, even when someone else kept sending the mail back. I did not read the speech. I folded it once, the same way I had at the start, and laid it on top of the letters. Grant's phone finally went dark. My mother looked at me then. Really looked. For the first time that day, I was not a wounded child in her story. I was the woman holding the paper version. I picked up the box. I left the 3 opened letters on the table. Not for drama, for record. The first thing to disappear was the pre-order page. I checked it 2 days later from my office at the library. The link my mother had sent to half of Columbus now led to a blank listing with the cover removed. By Friday, the event page for her signing at the church bookstore was gone too. The banner in the fellowship hall came down before the next Sunday service. No one made an announcement. A custodian folded Chosen into Grace into a rectangle and carried it under one arm. The $180,000 did not vanish in one dramatic stroke. Money rarely does. It leaked backward through the life my mother had already built around it. The photographer canceled the second portrait session. The speaking coach stopped appearing on her calendar. The publisher requested the return of the first payment. The cream leather SUV left the driveway 3 weeks later with a temporary dealer tag in the back window. My mother told people it was not practical. That was true in the way half a sentence can be true. Grant stopped using the word platform. He stopped recording family meals. At church, he still carried folding chairs, but he did it faster, with his eyes down. People were kind to him in the careful way people are kind when they have seen enough to stop asking questions. My mother called me 9 days after the brunch. I let it go to voicemail. She called again the next morning. Then she sent a text. We need to talk as mother and daughter. I looked at the words for a long time. They were not wrong words. They were just late. I called her back that evening. I was sitting at my kitchen table with the box open beside me. The letters were sorted by year. Some were still unread. I liked knowing I did not have to swallow 16 years in one sitting. My mother answered on the first ring. She sounded smaller. That did not make her safer. Claire, she said, I am sorry you were hurt. I closed my eyes for 1 second. That is not the same as being sorry you did it. She breathed into the phone. I heard a cabinet door close in her kitchen. The same kitchen where she had told me my father was gone for good. I thought I was protecting the life we had, she said. You were protecting the story you preferred. That is not fair. No, I said. What happened was not fair. This is just me saying it out loud. She began to cry then, quietly at first. My old training rose in me. Comfort her, make it easier, tell her she is still a good mother, hand her the ending she wants. I put my palm flat on the table until the urge passed. I am willing to read anything you want to send in a letter, I said. I am not willing to have a phone call where you edit the truth while I listen. You're cutting me off? I'm setting a boundary. After everything Grant did for you? There it was again, reaching for its old chair. I did not raise my voice. Grant stepped up in the story you wrote. My father kept writing in the life you hid. I am not confusing those two anymore. She did not answer. For once, the silence did not make me feel guilty. It made space. After that call, I made a new box. Not the cardboard one that had arrived at my door. A real archival box from the library supplier, gray and plain, with a lid that fit tightly. I lined the letters by year. I put the birthday letter first because that was the one that hurt cleanest. Then I made a label. I used a black pen and wrote, "Paper version." Mrs. Avery had been retired for years, but I still had her address from an old holiday card. I wrote to her. I did not tell the whole story. I only said that something she taught me when I was 15 had helped me keep my footing when my family tried to make me read a lie. A week later, she sent back a note in her narrow handwriting. It said, "Good. Shelve the truth where you can reach it." I taped that note inside the lid of the box. I did not turn my father into a saint. That would have been another kind of false story. He had missed years. Some of that was my mother's doing. Some of it may have been his weakness. Adults can be wrong in more than one direction. I learned to let the letters be what they were, proof that he had tried, not proof that everything could be repaired. I read them slowly. One a week at first. Sometimes one a month. In one letter, he remembered that I hated marshmallows and hot chocolate. In another, he asked if I still drew tiny houses in the corners of my homework. In the graduation letter, he wrote, "I will not come unless you ask me to. I do not want to make your day harder." My mother had called that absence. Now I had the paper version. The apology from Denise never became what I needed it to be. She sent one letter. It was 4 pages long. The first page said she had been young and scared. The second said my father had made things hard. The third said Grant loved me in his own way. The fourth finally said, "I should not have sent the letters back." I kept that page. I did not keep the rest. People ask whether I forgave her. They usually mean whether I went back to Sunday lunches and let Grant carve the ham while my mother told softened versions of what happened. I did not. Forgiveness, if it comes, will be quiet and private. Access is different. I no longer give my mother access to my voice when she wants it for a performance. The last time I saw her in person was at a grocery store in late June. She was standing near the greeting cards. That felt almost too neat. But life has a dry sense of humor when it wants one. She saw me. I saw her. For a second, we were both back at the table with the speech between us. Then she looked down at my basket. I had a pack of archival labels, a loaf of bread, and a bag of lemons. Nothing dramatic. Just a life that did not require her permission. She said, "You look well." I said, "I am." That was all. It was enough. Family is not the person who hands you a script and calls it healing. Family is the person who keeps sending the truth, even when no one promises it will reach you. Sometimes family is also the older librarian who teaches a 15-year-old girl to save the paper version. Sometimes it is the woman you become when you finally stop reading the lines someone else wrote. That's my story. 34 years old. 16 years of returned letters. 1 cardboard box. 1 red underlined speech. 1 Mother's Day brunch where my mother asked me to thank the wrong man, and the paper version answered for me. If someone in your life has ever demanded gratitude for a wound they helped hide, you are not ungrateful for wanting the truth. You are not difficult because you remember. You are not cruel because you finally put the paper on the table. Share this story with someone who needs permission to trust their own memory. Comment the word truth if you have ever had to save your own paper version. And subscribe for more stories about dignity, family, and the quiet power of a boundary that finally holds.